Welcome back. Jay Fagan here again with the Mattox Group for session 3 of our home buying seminar on the home buying opportunity and process for first-time home buyers or those returning to the market. In session 3, we're going to talk about the advantages to owning your own home. For many homeowners, particularly those here in California, homeownership puts you in a category of where you may be itemizing on your federal and state income tax returns. Now, as you heard me talk in our previous session, itemizing is all a strategy of deductions, and it's not really a strategy. If you're in a position where you have a mortgage, you have property taxes, you give to charity, you have medical expenses that are deductible, you want to take advantages though. With the standard deduction being so high, it's harder for more people to itemize because the government's giving you so much more of your income as tax-free as it is. However, for those who do itemize, homeownership offers common deductions and scenarios that are available to you that aren't available to people who are renting. In particular, we look at mortgage interest and points paid on the initial purchase or refinance of a home. Sometimes those points have to be amortized over a period of time. Sometimes they can be deducted right up front in the first year. And new for 2026, new tax law from OB3, PMI, private mortgage insurance, is once again going to be deductible. Now, there's a limitation on mortgage interest and PMI. It's only on the amount of the loan less than $750,000 of mortgage interest on a primary residence. Okay, anything above $750,000 is a disallowed deduction. That started in 2017. It's been made permanent here in 25 with OB3. Additionally, we have property taxes, which fall into the category of state and local taxes. Now, since 2017, state and local taxes have been limited to $10,000 a year as a maximum deduction. OB3 lifts that cap for single head of household and married filing joint filers to $40,000. There is a new adjusted gross income threshold, and when you exceed that over $550,000, the cap is reduced by a rate of 20% to $10,000. It doesn't go below $10,000. But for most of our homeowners here on the Central Coast, their adjusted gross income is going to be under $500,000 a year. They're going to be able to deduct up to $40,000. Now, again, it's not a fixed $40,000. It's only the state and local taxes, property taxes, state income taxes, state taxes on registrations for cars, that sort of thing. It's only those taxes that you actually pay. Now, you can deduct up to $40,000 of them, but if you don't have $40,000 in state and local taxes, you only get to deduct what you have. Remember that these are tax advantages, but they diminish and disappear over time. As you pay down your home, as the standard deduction grows, there's going to be less of a deduction for you. And while you may pay less in taxes, you're still paying whole dollars to someone else, in this case, the bank and your local property tax collector. Now, tax credits, which are a one-for-one reduction in your actual taxes owed, there have been a number of great tax credits for homeowners for doing improvements, energy efficiency improvements to your home, new windows, doors, water heaters, solar installations, geothermal, battery backup. Those were okay for a number of years. They were expanded under the 22 Inflation Reduction Act. But as of 2025, those tax credits are going away. And so the projects have to be installed by December 31st of 2025 in order to qualify for those tax credits. We have a video on that on our YouTube channel and linked on our website, so dive into that video for more detail there. Finally, if you work from home, and a number of our California homeowners do, many bought their homes in our area because they were leaving the Bay Area during COVID and they were able to work from home. If you work from home as an independent contractor, self-employed person, you may be able to take the home office deduction for using a dedicated portion of your home for business purposes. Additionally, if you rent out your home as a hosted Airbnb or for other, for example, visiting nurses, that kind of thing, you do need to declare the income on your Schedule E for passive rental income on your income tax return, but you can now write off a portion of some of the expenses of your home against that income as an overall deduction. Lastly, I want to note one of my favorites because I live here on the Central Coast where we have some of the best weather, the best golf, and the best cars in the world come to Monterey. And so we have a wonderful little rule in the tax code that's named after another great golf course designed by Alistair McKenzie, who of Pasatiempo and Cypress fame here on the Central Coast. But he did a little course down in Augusta, Georgia for Bobby Jones Sr. called Augusta National. And so the Masters Rule, or the Augusta Rule, was formed. And that allows homeowners to rent out their property for not more than 14 days in a total calendar year. And all of the income that they receive from doing so is tax-free. So for a number of years here on the Central Coast, or if you're up in the Bay Area where they have big golf tournaments or large events, Fleet Week, for example, homeowners once or twice a year have been able to rent out their homes, go on a little vacation themselves, and making a pretty decent amount of money. And the government doesn't care about it. Their tax advisor doesn't care about it, so long as it's not more than 14 days. Now, with the era of Airbnb, the Augusta Rule is not as powerful in California as it once was because a number of cities have instituted short-term rental bans, and they require lease agreements of 30 days or more, which is in violation of the Augusta Rule, and so you don't get that benefit. But you can still claim passive rental income and expenses if you do rent out your home that way. Owning your home is more than a place to rest your head. Smart homeownership represents the single largest wealth generation tool for most Americans. A lot of that is because of Section 121A. Section 121A is one of my favorite parts of the tax code, and doing capital gain analysis for our clients is my absolute favorite thing to do. I love real estate. I love property improvements and construction. My personal happy place is YouTube videos of chateau renovations. So I just find Section 121A a very powerful tool and a very enjoyable tool. And what that really entails is the homeowner exclusion from long-term capital gain. What that means is that your home appreciates in value, it grows in value, and you sell it for more than you paid for it. And now you're afraid you're going to pay income taxes on it. But up to $500,000 in that growth is tax-free because of Section 120A. $250,000 in capital gain exclusion per taxpayer, $500,000 for joint filers. Now that went into effect back in 1997. It has never been indexed to inflation. And for those of us here on the coasts and in high growth areas like Austin, Texas, there has been quite a lot of dismay about that being limited to $500,000 or $250,000 each. And so our local Congressman Jimmy Panetta here on the Central Coast of California, has put together a bill for a couple of years now, a bipartisan bill that would readjust that $250,000 for inflation, because if you go from 1997 to 2025, it would be approximately $500,000 per taxpayer, and therefore $1 million joint filers. He's got that bill, the Making More Homes Affordable Act. It goes by a couple of different names depending on the tax year, but that's the current one. And it's the kind of legislation that our current administration, the president, has indicated he might be behind in a correction. So I say this to say, reach out to your local congressman, encourage them to co-sign that bill with Congressman Panetta from the California 19th, and see if we can't get some movement on inflation adjusting the homeowner exclusion for homeowners across America, and the bill ties it to inflation moving forward, so we don't ever have to fix the problem again. Now, a couple of rules around this. It is limited to your primary residence. As I said, it's capped at $500,000 for joint filers. It's calculated, the gain is calculated after adjustments between your initial investment basis and your sale price. That is one of my favorite calculations to do. We have a wonderful tool that we use with our clients. So if you ever have any questions about it, feel free to reach out to us for a capital gain analysis. It is not all or nothing. Partial exclusions are allowable. Military service members generally have a 15-year look-back period. Everyone else is a 5-year period. What I mean by that, at least 2 of the last 5 years prior to the sale, the home needed to be your primary residence in order to achieve the full exclusion. As I said, partial exclusions are allowable. You just have to take a percentage of that. And then you remember when I was talking about the business use of the home, where you may have a passive rental or home office. If you took depreciation or you had taxable losses in prior years, that can affect the capital gain that you may pay. It can increase the gain or reduce the gain. There's some things to pay attention to, a few gremlins that come into play, particularly if the home was a rental for a long period of time and then you made it your personal residence. You may still have some gain recapture that you have to work with. Capital gain calculations for residents, as I said, are my favorite activity. So if you're considering a sale, don't distress. Call us the best and schedule your complimentary consultation with me and our firm today. So we've talked about the benefits to homeownership. In our next session, session 4, we're going to talk about some of the challenges, the pitfalls of homeownership to be aware of and to plan for so that you have a successful home buying experience. Stay tuned.